episode of The Measy Show. I'm your host with the most. Now, before we begin, hit that subscribe and that like button for me. Let me know that you are a citizen, a trooper, a real supporter of this channel, if you will, okay? In addition to that, if you could hit the post notification bell, that way anytime I drop something new, something trending, something that may pique your interest, you will be one of the first to view it. Now, a question that's often asked, people are confused about, or maybe they have a misconception or something that's a lot of controversy surrounding this, is, are Puerto Ricans black? So, partly, yes, they are, okay? Most of them have a percentage of African blood in their DNA. So when asking this question, first you got to look at the history of the place, okay? So Puerto Rico was once founded by, or once occupied by, the Taino Indians, the Taino natives, and that's these people. So this guy right here, he's Taino, okay? Now, he may or may not have a mix of whatever, but he is majority Taino native, I guess you could call it Native American, okay? So there are different looks in the Taino natives. I'll show you just a couple. So you got homie right here. You got homegirl right here, right? They're not really black. They're not white. They're not Mexican. They are their own race, similar to Native Americans or people of other ethnic groups that were native to the Americas prior to Spanish conquering, or whatever you call it, okay? So these are all Tainos, okay? Now,
or 125,000 strong in 1492 when they encounter the crew and the Italian captain of 3 Spanish ships.
Okay, so as you can see right here, in 1492, Spain first came in contact with the Taino Indians, okay? So you could just say 1500, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 500 and some years ago, they were exclusively Taino natives. Now, it's a whole nother conversation on how they got there. And we can maybe go into that one day. But nevertheless, Taino Indians were there long before anyone else, okay? Now, with that being the case, right? Similar to other places in the Americas where Native Americans were there, they lived their life, they had their own way of living, their own laws, their own everything else, okay? Now, in 1492, what happened? Well, let's take a look. So as you can see here, they came in, they pretty much conquered everything, okay? And then they mixed in. So we already know about the Spanish, the Castillos in particular. There are 2 main ethnic groups amongst Spain. The Basque, which is more similar to Portuguese, and the Castillos. Now, the Castillos are usually blonde hair, blue eye Spanish people, tall. And on the other hand, you have the Basque, okay? Now, the Basque are more similar to Portuguese, a little bit darker features, brown facial hair, brown hair, brown eyes, sometimes tan skin, okay? So shout out to the Portuguese, shout out to the Basque, okay? So anyway, when Spain came, they didn't come alone, right? They had captives with them, okay? So as we know, the European slave trade was gruesome. It was horrific, okay? So just so you get a good idea.
Arrived in Puerto Rico in 1509 as a free functionary in the entourage of Juan Ponce de Leon.
So this is the first free African that had went there, okay? But I'm pretty sure they had them on the boat as well when they came. Because remember, don't let anybody fool you. America and the Americas was built on the blood, sweat, and tears, and on the backs of captives. Okay, so anyway, they came with African people, okay, from Africa. Now, with that being the case, right, just like with anything else, they mix in, right? So Spain, they had it for a long time, and they sold it to America only 100 years ago. But nevertheless, it's an island. It's not America. See, this is one thing that people don't realize. So when they say that Puerto Ricans are not black, for the people that say that, they are in fact African for the most part, right? But you have to remember, it's a small place. So in America, you have big pockets of black communities: Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama. These are huge, and I'll show you just to get a good idea. So as you can see here, right, most of the western and central and northern United States doesn't have a super big black population, right? A lot of them are 0 to 10%, some of them 10 to 20, even some 20 to 30, right? In the Las Vegas area. By the way, Las Vegas has a lot of Black Americans. I was there. So, nevertheless, right? It's a big place. Just from San Diego, which is the very tip of California, to Sacramento, is 500 miles. So you can imagine it's probably like close to 4,000 miles across, right? Now, America is big enough to where the racist, white people at that time didn't really have to too much mix, right? They didn't have to too much mix. And just to show you, I'll give you an idea, right? So the black population is pretty much along the southern and the southeastern seaboard, right? It's a high black population in a lot of these places, okay? So with that being the case, you got to keep in mind this country is big.
2,800 miles. According to Statista, measuring from its furthest points, the contiguous United States is approximately 2,800 miles from east to west, and 1,650 miles from north to south. The total area of the U.S. and its territories is over 3.8 million square miles.
So there you have it right there. It's 2,800 miles across, right? So it's big enough. People didn't have to mix that did not want to. Now, on the other hand, you have Puerto Rico, right? How big across is Puerto Rico?
According to Discover Puerto Rico, the island territory is only 100 miles long and 35 miles wide. Still, it packs a fantastic diversity of sights, scenery, and culture.
So the island of Puerto Rico is 100 miles across, right? So it goes without saying that it wouldn't take long for them to really mix, right? Now, when this happened, you got to remember you have the Taino, you have the Spanish that are left over, and then you have the Africans that are there, okay? Now, eventually, it wasn't as... America or the whole slave trade was drawn out very long and very, very unfairly. Puerto Rico is small, and it's a lot of jungle, so it would be nothing for these people to escape, shake them, and start their own communities. And before you know it, this community might go from 100 to 5,000, and then this community might do from 50 to however many, So it wouldn't take long to mix in, right? So when they mix in, that's when you get the looks that are something like this, okay? So you got the Puerto Ricans that are like this, right? They look more on the Latin side, right? These are like Latin Puerto Ricans, right? Now, on the other hand, you see this little girl right here? You have the ones like this. They're mixed, have more African in them, maybe a little bit more Taino, right? So then eventually, they all start creating these mixes. Now, today, you can only imagine.
According to Wikipedia, studies have shown that the racial ancestry mixture of the average Puerto Rican, regardless of racial self-identity, is about 64% European, 21% African, and 15% native Taino, with European ancestry strongest on the west side of the island and West African ancestry strongest on the east side, and the levels of Taino.
So there you have it, right? A good amount of them are Spanish, right? 21% African and 15% Taino. Now you have to remember, right, and calculating these numbers, that the Tainos were wiped out for the most part, just similar to Native Americans in the mainland, okay? So you have all kinds of plagues. They're plaguing them with smallpox. They're killing them. And not to mention, it's a small island. You have a country that's the size of Spain and a country that's the size of Puerto Rico. They don't really stand a chance, okay? So now, with this being the case, some are Latin looking, some are black looking, some are Taino looking. Overall, right, you have a group of people that is a mix, but some people might maybe, let's just say if you had a little bit more African blood and another mate of that person had a little bit more African blood, that person might come out looking a little bit more black, right? So when people ask, right, are Puerto Ricans black? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They are partly African, for sure. Now, the culture is different, because you got to remember, United States, I think it was 1865, slavery was abolished, right? No, on the other hand, this is when Puerto Rico abolished slavery, right? Now, it doesn't take much for things to change in a small place, okay? All it takes is a couple generations. So as you know, this is almost 200 years. A lot can happen in that time in a place that's 100 miles by 37 miles. So they have their own culture, true enough, but yes, they are African. Some may be more, some may be less. These numbers were just averages based on the most extremes on both this end and the polar opposite, right? So anyway, In a nutshell, if you want to ask if they are in fact black, yes, they are part black. Some of them more so than others. But at the end of the day, Puerto Ricans, from what I've seen, I just came back. They they identify as Puerto Rican. They don't necessarily have the divisions as much as we do in America. Is there any racism in Puerto Rico against blacks or Spanish or maybe a little bit, but not like here. For sure, not like here. So Spain sold it. They gave it to America. It wasn't hard to flip and change in a period of just less. Probably, I bet you it changed in probably 60 years, 3 quick generations. So to ask if Puerto Ricans are black, yes, they are part black. Some are more than others, but they embrace their culture as Puerto Ricans. That is their culture. So anyway, I hope this answers your guys' question. I appreciate you guys for watching. If you have not already, please hit that subscribe and that like button for me. Salute. Y'all have a great afternoon. I'm gone.